Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday. We have Wild Card Weekend in the books. We are going to recap the games. It was a wild weekend indeed. We had 4 pretty stunning games and then 2 a little less stunning games to end. But Dennis, I have to ask, is the new trend, if you don't win in the playoffs, you immediately think it's time to fire your coach?
It sure sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. You want... a fan base wants more than just, we made the playoffs. You want to be able to have a legitimate run. But, man, there were a lot of teams that didn't make the playoffs. Would you like their coaches? I mean, let's be real here.
I know Cincinnati fans are looking at all these teams like, what gives, guys? What gives? You don't know pain yet. We are going to recap the games in order. We are going to talk about a couple of the coaches whose teams didn't win that seem to be on the hot seat and how we feel about that, including Pittsburgh, where Mike Tomlin resigned today. But we will start on Saturday. Los Angeles Rams were favored by 10.5 points. I thought it was too many points, but I still thought that they would get a pretty easy victory. It turns out this was an incredible back and forth, a lot of growth for young Bryce Young. The Rams end up pulling it out 34-31. Heading into this week, a lot of people were on the Rams as a trendy Super Bowl pick. Are they still the NFC team to beat?
I don't think so. It feels like it's prime for Seattle. The Rams. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just the Panthers who have their defense's number. But I think there's reason to be concerned. Bryce Young, yeah, he threw for 264, but he barely completed over 50% of his passes. The running game produced, a whole 73, 77 yards. So the defense held up. So I don't know, man. It was one of those games where they got down close and Jalen Coker had a great game and Teteroa McMillan played well, but the Rams still should have been able to do a little more. They committed 9 penalties, and I think that may have had something to do with helping Carolina out when they were in a pinch. But Bryce Young has to get better. He has to get more efficient. I know they picked up his either said they were picking it up or they picked up his option, 5th-year option. But who's it? Dan Morgan's in their front office.
In Carolina's front office?
Yeah, or is that Kuechly? That's Kuechly. And whoever it was.
No, it's Dan Morgan.
Said we're picking up the option, but we have to have some talks about the long-term stuff. And I think that Young has to be better for Carolina. Matthew Stafford, I could see them making a push, the Rams. The running game was efficient, but it's broke up. Williams averaged 4.4 yards. Corum averaged 4.1. The passing game, 31 targets out of 42 targets to Nakua and Adams. You know where it's going. And then the two tight ends made some plays. If the Rams can get a pass rush going consistently, then I think, yeah, maybe they can make a run. And we know that Sam Darnold can get rattled. But I don't know, man. I felt like, yeah, 10.5 points was a lot, but squeaking it out by 3 sure felt like that wasn't the answer.
No, but we've seen some of these guys win close before. The thing I think about is there are certain teams that no matter whether you on paper should be a lot better, you just don't match up well. And the Rams beat Seattle the first time, arguably should have beaten the Seahawks the second time. There was some questionable, debated about calls. I wonder if they felt a little too comfortable going into Carolina both times they've gone into Carolina, and if Carolina just matches up a little better. I still, looking at the 4 teams that are out there, like the Rams the best. There is a part of me that for the same reason that I don't quite trust the Broncos and Bo Nix, do not quite trust Sam Darnold and the Seahawks. So we'll see if that bears out. For Carolina, I thought it was a nice end to the season. I thought Young, in both Rams games, made some nice plays, and we'll see. Obviously, Jalen Coker seems to work there. Ted McMillan looks good. It's kind of feeling like Leggett might be a little bit of a bust. I think their biggest question is going to be what to do with Rico Dowdle, because he was like a league winner for a few weeks in the middle and disappeared down the stretch. And in this game, only 5 carries for 9 yards. Chuba Hubbard looked better running, had both of the touchdowns, and afterward, Dowdle talked about not being sure what he's looking for in free agency, that he wasn't happy with his role after he had proven himself. So it feels like something weird went on there with Dave Canales. So I'm curious about him. If I have rostered quite a few shares of Dowdle because he was a guy I picked up on the cheap when he was with Dallas, and I just hung on to him, and that really paid off. But I'm starting to wonder if that the magic end of the rainbow is here.
So hashtag 2 to 3 year window, and it's closing fast. Dowdle's a jag. He had a great run mid-season. Hubbard had a great run last year, earned a contract extension. Dowdle just wasn't as good in the passing game and the protection part of the passing game as Hubbard. And when that kind of ramped up, you saw that's when he started to lose touches, in part because you don't want to telegraph, oh, this back is in, we're running, this back is in, we're passing. And so it kind of started to shift back towards Chuba Hubbard because they could have a more varied offense. I think Dowdle was still the more explosive of the two backs, but he, after he kind of, I don't know if neutered is the right word, but he lost, when he started to lose touches, it felt like he lost confidence.
Yeah.
And then he was in that, I got to make a big player, they're going to take me out mindset, it felt like.
Yeah.
Bryce Young's got to complete more than 53% of his passes. The O-line's got to be better. I mean, he spread the ball around. He had, 10 different players were targeted on those 40 pass attempts. It sure feels like Dowdle's going to go somewhere else. Maybe is it they
well, maybe they're hoping Jonathan Brooks will come back from the dead. And Hubbard's on a long-term contract. I do wonder if Hubbard hadn't gotten injured, if Dowdle would have even really gotten that big of a chance to explode.
Didn't feel like it did it.
And it was almost just because he exploded so much at a time when they needed him that they slow played bringing Hubbard back. The other Saturday game was fascinating. Packers started out red hot, got a 21-3 halftime lead over the Bears. It looked like it was going to be a walk away, but that is why they play all 4 quarters. The Bears, a 25-point fourth quarter, get the 31-27 victory. We'll get to the Bears in a minute, but another unceremonious exit for the Packers under Matt LaFleur. There was a lot of hue and cry on the internet, on talk shows, everywhere that he should not be welcomed back. Yesterday, they said they were looking at potentially a contract extension with him, but a lot still up in the air. Ultimately, what do you think happens with Matt LaFleur?
I think they extend him. If Adam Schefter is talking that they're talking about extending him, I tend to lean that way. He's dialed in. Him, there's him and Rappaport and Glazer. There are a few guys out there that when they're talking stuff, you generally are like, well, it may not happen exactly like he says, but they're generally not guys who are just putting out smoke with no fire. So Schefter saying they're talking extension. Now, what kind of extension? Probably something that if he does face plant again next year, they can get out of it pretty cheap. With Mike Tomlin walking, this feels like a great opportunity. Like if they could get Tomlin to go to Green Bay, that feels like a great fit. But with Tomlin, in essence, retiring, I think there would have to be compensation for anybody that wants to sign him.
Tomlin said he was likely to take a year off.
Yeah, he said that now, but you get a little itchy.
Part of me wonders. I probably wouldn't fire Matt LaFleur, but part of me wonders if he's going into a contract year, do you let him be in that contract year and see what happens? That to me would make more sense than a extension with some of the high-profile postseason failure.
Yeah, I would probably do that, but it's hard to do the lame duck coaching thing. They always want to, and so maybe the question isn't, are they going to extend him? It's like, are they just going to tack another year on and say, look, go next year and earn the big extension? Because right now, if the choice is extend you for 3 or 4 years or you're going to walk, then we're going to probably say goodbye.
Well, and sometimes a coach can get you to a certain level of success and it plateaus. I remember when we first had Peyton Manning in Denver, John Fox actually took the Tim Tebow team from the toilet to getting into the playoffs. And then with Manning, they got in the playoffs. They actually went to a Super Bowl against Seattle. But there was a certain point where it was seemingly obvious that we weren't going to win the Super Bowl with him as our coach. There was a certain plateau level and they let him go and they brought somebody in and won. We saw John Gruden do that in Tampa Bay where Tony Dungy had built them up for years and they were competitive. They were in championship games. They were there and you were missing that last element. And I wonder if that's not the case with Green Bay. And I think if it was me, I get it's not my team. So I get the ardor of the fan base that are saying we're done with it. I love to watch the Annie Agar videos on Facebook, and she clearly pretty well over, McCarthy or LaFleur. Sorry, everyone was over McCarthy, over LaFleur. But, I would probably just let him play it out. I'm not surprised they're maybe having discussions about the future, but I'm with you. I wouldn't want to make it. I don't think you can survive making it. They have a brand new president in Green Bay. I don't know that you survive making a 3-year commitment to him right now with how red hot things are, because the people that seem the most angry are actually Packers fans. And part of it might be that they just got built up so much that they were a sure thing, like Super Bowl contender, and it just didn't happen.
Well, and I think you can, they can also, he can come back and say, look, we lost Micah Parsons, Josh Jacobs got banged up, we lost Luke, not Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. You can kind of make the injury excuse a little bit with them and say, we might have went further if not for that, but
yeah. Meanwhile, we'll switch over to the Bears. Huge comeback win, something they've been doing all season. Kind of like the energy and moxie Ben Johnson has brought to that team, but not a contender in the eyes of a lot of people. They were a home underdog despite being a 2 seed. They're going to be a home underdog again against the Rams. Are they kind of a sleeper team in the NFC?
So when I read that, I started to think about the Bears, and at first I was like, well, yeah, of course. And then I went and looked at the stats a little bit closer, and I'm like, the Bears are like the crazy hot chick at the bar that's like dancing with different people, getting up on the bar, raising hell, doing shots. Caleb Williams got to do better than 50% completion rate. I get it. He threw.
I didn't realize he was lowest in the league this year, only 58%.
Oh, yeah.
Season. That's not great, Bob.
Yeah. And Ben Johnson, coming from Jared Goff, who was, 78% or whatever, Ben's going to be like, look, we got to find the happy medium to allow you to be you, but we can't do it at 50% completion, 55% completion. They've got weapons. It was nice to see with Rome Odunze and Luther Burden both healthy. DJ Moore actually got some play. Colston Loveland had a monster game. I like the running back tandem, but if they're only going to run the ball 21 times, then neither one of them are really great for fantasy unless, they get touchdowns. Swift did have 2 catches, and doesn't look like Monangai had 1 catch. So, but that volume from the running game puts them both in, low to mid-level flex with touchdown dependent upside for fantasy. I love what Caleb Williams can do. I just want to see him get more consistent with it. I forget, who are they playing in the next round?
The Rams.
Did you see?
They're playing the Rams.
The Rams. So, this is going to be I would expect the Rams to put the same kind of pressure on Caleb Williams that they did Bryce Young. So I don't know that we're going to see another efficient game. Now, the big difference, I think, between Williams and Young is I think Williams is a better runner, while Young is a capable runner. Williams is better because he's just a little bit bigger. Bryce Young is kind of slight. That's going to be an interesting game, but, Colston Loveland had a coming out party.
Yep, it will be interesting. The early game on Sunday saw the Buffalo Bills go to battle the 3-seeded Jacksonville Jaguars, got the 27-24 victory. Dennis, we've wondered all along who's going to step up as a pass catcher for the Bills. I honestly forgot they acquired Brandon Cooks, but who didn't forget was Josh Allen. He ended up with 3 for 58. He also had a long bomb that just got overturned. 5 targets. He seemed to be kind of maybe the deep threat that they needed. Do you like him as a fit in this playoff run?
I want to. The hard thing is that he's hasn't had 1,000-yard season since 2021. He was on a roll. I think he had like 5 or 6 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons with 4 different teams or something. It feels kind of flash in the pan. I mean, he's no Christian Kirk, but he did give them what they needed in this game. I think typically that role has been played by Gabe Davis or Keon Coleman, that down the field role. And Coleman has fallen out of favor. And Gabe Davis, I think he tore his ACL at some point in the game.
Yeah.
So now, no, it was Tyrell Shavers that tore his ACL. I think Davis did get injured too, though.
Gabe Davis tore his ACL. Okay. Shavers got injured, but Davis tore the ACL.
So it's going to have to be Cooks, Cooks and Shakir. Who knows? Maybe they get Curtis Samuel back. But, Knox and Kincaid, they're not – Kincaid just hasn't blossomed in that Travis Kelce kind of role that I think everybody felt he was destined for, or at least the fantasy community did, he included. But they need an alpha wide receiver in Buffalo. It's late to get it now. And James Cook, for as good a season as he had, he only carried the ball 15 times and only had 2 pass targets. It just wasn't there. But ultimately, the Jaguars got to stop Buffalo on that last drive.
Yeah, and Buffalo just coming through. Well, let's talk about the Jaguars for a minute. Obviously, a pretty successful season. They have to decide what they're going to do with Travis Etienne in the backfield, but I think they also have to decide what they're going to do on offense. Parker Washington, a row coming out party on Sunday. They re-signed Jacoby Myers. He looked good. They have Brian Thomas. Part of me wonders if when Travis Hunter comes back, he is going to be a full-time corner that occasionally plays offense.
It sure feels that way, doesn't it?
I mean, corner is where they're the most screwed.
I wouldn't have thought at the beginning of the season that it would be more likely for them to bring Etienne back, sign Myers to an extension, have a Parker Washington breakout, and then Travis Hunter move to predominantly defensive back. But that looks like where it's going. And while I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot, it feels like he's going to end up being the odd man out. They love Brenton Strange. And I think there may be some thought that De'Ami Brown provides them and Tim Patrick provides them with enough depth that maybe they can move off of Brian Thomas. Where he'd fit great? Buffalo.
Well, and maybe they can recoup a pick because it makes logical sense to move Travis Hunter to corner and have him be more like a true Dion where, maybe he comes in for a few exciting plays. But that means you spent a hell of a lot to go up and get a corner.
But shutdown corners are worth a lot of capital. And if he can be a shutdown corner, we see it. Where'd you guys draft Surtain at?
No, Surtain was a first-round pick, but it had to have been later in the first round.
Yeah. But it's not uncommon to see when you have
it's not uncommon to take, to spend your first-round pick, but didn't they trade this year's first to move up?
They did. Yeah, they traded.
So we took Surtain at 9, but that was our pick.
Right. Still, I mean, you go get your guy. They went and got their guy. Could he be as a wide receiver? Could he be a Pro Bowl player, All Pro? I think he probably has that ability. But what's the team need? The team needs a cornerback. And could he be an All Pro cornerback? I think he can be an All Pro cornerback. You can't be All Pro at both, though. I don't care how good a shape you're in.
The middle game on Sunday, also pretty exciting. The Eagles came in favored by 5.5 points, one of the few home favorites and one of the biggest home favorites. But that did not matter to San Francisco, nor did losing more players. They managed to pull off the 23-19 victory to advance, but George Kittle tore his Achilles. How big of a loss is that for San Francisco, both in this postseason and presumably in 2026?
Well, Jake Tongas came in and played really well in Kittle's absence, and I think that bodes well for them. I don't think he's a free agent, so they're going to be comfortable slotting him in at that position and letting Kittle get healthy.
Jake Tongas is on a 1-year deal. He will be a free agent. Yep.
Well, they're going to need to pay give that man his money. As who's that? John? Forget that movie. It was just mentioned on something earlier.
Oh, Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
No, I was thinking Rounders. Give that man his money. So if they bring Tongas back, then he can step in and give you 85 90% of what Kittle gives you. He showed that. They have bigger questions, I think, at wide receiver with Ricky Pearsall's inability to stay healthy. Demarcus Robinson is, not a long-term answer. Brandon Ayuk is on his way out the door. So that leaves Juwan Jennings as the number one wide receiver. And they're going to need some depth at wide receiver. So maybe Pearsall gets healthy.
Pearsall stay healthy.
Yeah. So right now it's tough to bet on that. And then my biggest fear for San Francisco going into next year is going to be Christian McCaffrey coming off a monster workload. And history tells us.
Isn't Brian Robinson on a contract here? So they'd have to decide to bring him back too.
Well, if they look at McCaffrey's track record, I got to say, but they also like Isaac Guerrero, who was injured this year. So if he'll come back next year, he's under contract. I don't know. I like Kyle Shanahan as a coach. He gets the most out of his players, but with losing Bosa and some of the other defensive injuries, the fact that he was able to win a wild card game, I think, is a testament to him. And it'll be interesting to see, what they do in this offseason. They're going to have to do some reconfiguring. Trent Williams is getting up there. He's missed. Seems like he misses 4 or 5 games every year now. And some of it seems like he's missing games because he's like, I just don't fucking feel like working today, guys. It's kind of what that feels like in some of those games.
On the other side, the Eagles, kind of a brutal loss. They're still only a year removed from winning the Super Bowl, and yet there seems to be constant hue and cry about Nick Sirianni. They did go ahead and fire their offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, today, which means they'll have yet another offensive coordinator in Sirianni's tenure. If he is there, do you think that is the extent of the coaching changes, or do you think Sirianni may still end up going?
I think he's safe this year. He's butting heads with A.J. Brown, but low-volume passing offenses and diva wide receivers, it's a tale as old as time.
Feels like Brown is more likely to go in that matchup.
Correct. And for me, I'm like, well, let's get – Barkley had a good year. I think compared to what we expected last year, it'll do Barkley some good to get some rest this offseason after the monster workload last year and carrying the load pretty much this year too. But Devontae Smith feels like he's like, I'm going to let that guy on the other side of the field throw his hissy fit, and I'm just going to go out here. Will this be the year they finally dump Dallas Goedert? For all the hate Dallas Goedert got, no, they were like, oh, we don't like this guy. They were like, look, we want to get rid of this guy. Somebody come and take this guy. Anybody, give me a half a sandwich for him and you can have him. And people were like, no.
And he might have been their most reliable receiver.
And he went out and had a great season. If I'm Goddard, I'm like, whatever. No, but the Eagles, I think that Sirianni is safe, but they have to make a run again next year, which is hard to do. And their offensive line has had some issues. They got to get some of that resolved. I like that they're able to produce. Patillo was there for 4 seasons prior to this, so it isn't like he was. Everybody's like, oh well, a new coordinator. He was the passing game coordinator for 4 seasons before being the OC. So yeah, it certainly feels like he's the fall guy. And some coaches, they're great at designing an offense, but not great at calling plays. And that may very well be where Patillo is at. He can design an offense and give you all the right plays to run, just maybe not great at when to run them. And so he's going to land on his feet, I'm sure. But no, I think Sirianni's he'll have as turbulent an offseason as he ever does because of just the kind of guy he is. He's an abrasive guy in general, it feels like. So, Jalen Hurts is entrenched, Barkley's entrenched.
Well, we will see what happens. I tend to agree with you. I think Sirianni's back. They get a new offensive coordinator, and AJ Brown is the one that they move on from. But
I mean, the hard thing is going to be like if you're an up and coming, or if you're a hot offensive coordinator, do you want to go somewhere where the head coach is kind of on the hot seat?
I mean, I don't know. It worked out really well for Kellen Moore because this is the exact same setup that he walked into in the 2024 season. They did great because they had all the pieces. They went and won the Super Bowl, and he parlayed that into his own head coaching job. So I don't think it's off the table. That's the thing. They still have the pieces of a team that in a dynamic scheme was good. And, what you would probably have worried about the most with the Eagles going into this season was after a historic workload, would Saquon Barkley break down? But he didn't. And he was arguably the best part of their offense on Sunday, he and Goddard. So maybe the personality stuff is too much. Maybe Jalen Hurts isn't the exact right answer, but you find somebody that figures out how to build around him. They still have Devonta Smith, Goddard. They still have complementary pieces. And Saquon Barkley, that could probably be enough. The NFC East, the Giants are a work in progress with nothing but potential and no offensive line. I don't know what the Commanders are doing. They're another team that flushed their entire coaching staff pretty much down the toilet and starting over. And they were the oldest team in football, so they have a lot of work to do. Dallas is a perennial Super Bowl contender, according to Jerry Jones, but, so Philly's not in a terrible position. I don't think it is a terrible opening. I don't know. That the thing that would scare me probably the most about that job is the fan base, because rarely have I seen a team that was 11-6, won its division, and was a number 3 seed that manages to get booed at home every single quarter of every single game. And I'm sure that doesn't help. It almost reminds me of the Chargers when they were in that Temp Stadium after they left San Diego, but before they got SoFi opened, and they were in that Temp Stadium, and no one ever went to see the games that was an actual Chargers fan, and they played demonstrably better when they were on the road. So right. I don't know. The Sunday night game had plenty of potential as the Chargers went in to face the Patriots, but it was kind of a dog of a game. New England wins 16-3, but really 7 of those points came very late in the fourth quarter. This was mostly a snoozer of a field goal game because neither team looked that great. We'll start with the Chargers. They fired their line coach and their offensive coordinator today because they only mustered 3 points. They could not take advantage of any of the Patriots' turnovers, and it was a miserable game for Justin Herbert. And this is now getting to be a big question for him. He's paid like a franchise guy. He's been great in the regular season, but now he is 0-3 career in the playoffs, 674 yards combined in 3 games, 54.7% completion combined in 3 games, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 13 sacks. Only 159 yards passing and 6 sacks on Sunday night. Is this game a reflection of the offensive coaching, or is it right that people have questions about Herbert?
Well, as an Ohio State fan, I'm plenty willing to say it was all coaching. It was all Harbaugh.
Well, the coaches that fell on the sword were Greg Roman and whoever was coaching, Mike Devlin.
Right. Still, I'm perfectly happy to say it was all Harbaugh. No, the Chargers had significant offensive line issues due to injuries, and a lot of they got here, I think, in no small part due to Justin Herbert's ability to escape pressure and make plays. but at some point it just runs out. There were some passes that, Keenan Allen had a drop, or Rondé Gadsden had a drop, Trey Harris had a.
Nope. I think we lost Dennis there. Yeah, I think the Chargers, it makes a little bit of sense that they're going to go get a different offensive coordinator, maybe give that a try. Obviously, offensive line issues. I feel bad for the offensive line coach because you're bearing the brunt of playing a really good defense with third and fourth string offensive linemen. That felt like a little bit of a cut. So maybe if they can get some better health. But I do have questions about Herbert. Last year he was perfect in the regular season, and I thought they were going to win that playoff game, and he just got trucked. And on Sunday night they had some early turnovers and stuff. He never looked comfortable. He never found his footing. To be less than 55% completion over 3 playoff games in 3 different years gives me pause.
Well, and this year, let's not be shy about giving Mike Vrabel and the Patriots defense some credit. They saw the weakness and they were able to, put pressure on Herbert in such a fashion that he wasn't allowed to kill him with his legs. Now, he did lead them in rushing with 57 yards. Omarion Hampton got banged up, and Herbert ended up, Vidal had 11 for 31 and Herbert 10 for 57. So he still was kind of getting it done there on the ground. But yeah, you've got to be able to complete the passes and put them where your guys can catch them.
Let's talk about the Patriots. Their defense was very good. Their offense, I thought, was just okay. Drake May made a few exciting plays. That 28-yard touchdown to Hunter Henry certainly was a nice capper. Also made some curious turnovers. Running game was okay, but not really spectacular. What do we make of this Patriots team as they get ready to host a pretty stout defense in the Texans?
Honestly, I think so you remember what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think, when we would talk about the Giants and how they were doing, and we kept going, just feels like they're a year ahead of schedule. They're a year early on this. Now, granted, the next year they face planted and Daniel Jones got injured. But it feels like the Patriots are playing well, but they're kind of ahead of schedule. It's Vrabel's first year. He's remaking the team a little bit. He's got some offensive line, some defensive playmakers. He's trying to get, the wide receiver room is questionable at best. A couple of great running backs. I think Ramondre Stevenson has essentially added a couple of years to his career with the year he had. Hunter Henry has been, consistent as sunrise. So they're a little bit ahead of schedule to me. I think they're going to, do they have the potential to make a deep run in the playoffs or maybe even win it all? Yeah. I mean, Drake May is an MVP contender. And when they get to clicking, Kayshon Boutte, 4 for 4 for 66. And while Diggs was not great, what was it? 10 different players had targets from May. May was, he led the team in rushing. So this wild game, both quarterbacks led their teams in rushing. He rushed for 66 yards. I think they have the potential to be, they're a team that feels like they could get hot and win it, especially with the explosiveness of Travion Henderson. And then it seems like for 3 weeks now or so that Ramondre Stevenson has been busting off these big plays, had a 48-yard reception. And so it's like they have the right formula for the way this team is built. It'll come down to, can Drake May make plays when he has to?
Final game of the weekend was also not a barn burner. Monday Night Football saw the number 5 seed Houston Texans go to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. This one was a 7-6 game through 3 quarters, and then Houston simply exploded on offense and defense in the fourth quarter, putting up 23 unanswered points to win 30-6. For the Texans, a surprising guy seemed to step up every time they needed a play in the passing game. It seemed like it was Christian Kirk, caught 8 for 144 and a touchdown. They went and got him this offseason to be a compliment, to be a veteran in that room. We didn't see it consistently through the regular season, but could this be a big sign of things to come from him in the playoffs?
I want to say yes, but I don't believe it. It just feels like this was a game where CJ Stroud got to a certain point in his reads and he made the throws, and Christian Kirk converted them. We've seen before where Kirk will have some of these 2 for 8 target games, ends up not being able to convert. He converted really well, had a bunch of big plays in this game. He's going to be 30 years old next year. He's signed through 2026 at $11.4 million is his cap hit, and it's also his dead cap. So they're not going to save any money by cutting.
Yeah, and the Texans too, especially not having much idea what's going to happen with Tank Dell, who basically sat out this season after another brutal injury. He's still on the team. See if he manages to bounce back. They have the 2 rookies, but I did think Kirk, we saw maybe the vision of why they went and got him this offseason in the way it kind of came together in this playoff game. It probably helped a little bit for him and his productivity that Nico Collins got injured and knocked out. But I'm with you. I think he's there next year and, could be an interesting piece.
Apologies for my internet keeping crap in the bed. I'm not sure what's going on. I was surprised when I looked and saw that it felt like Kirk missed a lot of time, and his numbers were admittedly not great when it comes to targets and receptions, but he played in 13 games.
Yeah, sometimes it just didn't feel like he was a big part of it. Maybe it took a little while for him to catch on. We'll see. The Steelers, meanwhile, they could not get anything going on offense. A very ugly end. They allowed a rushing touchdown to Woody Marks, followed by 2 unanswered defensive touchdowns. Mike Tomlin, as we mentioned at the top, resigned today, ending 19 years being the head coach. There had been a lot of speculation about whether he was on the hot seat. Fans late in the season had chanted for him to go, so I think he felt it was time for a change. The other biggest looming question was going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's 42 years old, finishes 17 of 33, 146 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, which was returned for a touchdown. Probably a career low for him in QBR at 14.3. Had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown as well. Looked pretty defeated. He has talked about this being his last season. There have been rumors bubbling up that Pittsburgh is kind of interested in bringing him back. I kind of feel like Pittsburgh, with Tomlin resigning, would be better off going into something of a rebuild mode since the cupboard's not exactly fully stocked. I think this is the end for Aaron Rodgers. Do you?
I do. I think it would have been more likely he would have come back if Tomlin stayed. But the Steelers need to tear it down. Yeah, and I feel bad for DK Metcalf because he left Seattle trying to get, got traded.
He played himself.
Yeah, he wanted to go and try to win, and it just isn't going to happen in Pittsburgh right now. But they need to tear it down. They've got some age on the defensive side of the ball with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt. And I know Watt just signed an extension last season, but and he had a good game yesterday, admittedly. But at some point, it feels like I think Hayward might be retiring. I think he's ready to hang it up. they've got some age and all around. They've been working on slowly rebuilding their O-line with like one top 3 round draft pick each year for like the last 4 or 5 years. They need those guys to kind of come together and gel. Maybe Will Howard is the answer. Maybe Mason Rudolph is the bridge. They're going to bring after Tomlin, it feels like they may go offensive head coach after Tomlin being a defensive guy. But they're going to, there's obvious, it would be the most Steelers ever thing to do, I think, to give the job to Arthur Smith. So,
oh my God. Steelers fans everywhere are now blocking our show on Instagram. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
With that comment,
the Steelers, it's not still not inconceivable the Steelers could void DK Metcalf's guaranteed money and set him free, which might be the best thing for him too. Or, I think the Steelers have always been the kind of organization that will work with the players, maybe try to help him move somewhere, maybe try to help if Watt wants to win, move somewhere, because they're just at a point in time. They've been middle of the road for so long. You either have to blow it up and try to go in another direction or just continue to be one and done. And it seemed like Tomlin was tired of being one and done. Still an incredible mark. 19 years, never had a losing season. I mean, that is really good. I'll be curious. He said he's likely to take at least a year off. But I know you said you think he's going to be permanently retired, which could be. I mean, that's what happened with Bill Cowher. Everybody thought Bill Cowher would take a year off and come back, and he never did. But part of me just feels like Tomlin will be back. I guess we'll see what happens there. But that's a wrap on Wild Card Weekend. We have 4 big divisional round games. Going to be talking about those on Thursday and see if any of the coaching openings get filled. A lot of fast and furious interviewing happened last week. A lot more fast and furious interviewing happening this week. Who would have thought Mike McDaniel would be one of the hottest names on the coaching circuit, both for everyone's offensive coordinator opening and every head coaching position. And your boy Arthur Smith apparently is one of the front runners for the Tennessee job. So, if you have Cam Ward, now is the time to sell. But that'll do it for us today. Dennis, if people have some long and lonely time to fill, what can they do?
Get your device out, hit that podcast platform, go over to the search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. Give us a like, give us a subscribe.
And Arthur Smith, if you're out there, open invitation to come on Thursday and talk about your plans for leading your next team to victory. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.